Hey girlfriend, this is Jan James. Welcome to the Hope After Breast Cancer podcast, where women who have endured breast cancer learn to have fulfillment over frustration, clarity over confusion, and faith over fear. We tackle the issues that many of our sisters face after a breast cancer diagnosis, from brain fog to fear of recurrence, from menopause to sex after breast cancer. This is the place to learn how to have hope after breast cancer. So strap yourself in. Welcome to the Hope After Breast Cancer podcast. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to introduce you to my friend Amy King. She is someone that lives near me in Arizona, USA. And I actually asked her if she would do us a really big favor. We have the Sex After Breast Cancer Facebook group, which is now well over 5,000 women, and it is growing like hotcakes. And a while back, Amy wrote this beautiful post about how some of the things that she learned in the Sex After Breast Cancer group, as well as some information from her gynecologist, had really allowed her to reclaim her sexual health after breast cancer. So I invited her to talk with you about the things that she did in the hopes that those might encourage you to look at some of the same things. I'm going to just state for the record, there is no one size fits all for us girls. Unfortunately, it's not a checklist that you can just check off. I would encourage you, if you're in the Sex After Breast Cancer group, to always go and search for #solutions, because you want to determine whether or not painful intercourse might be caused by muscle problems, tissue problems, lubrication problems. There's lots of different ways that things go a little sideways. And so you need to be able to treat the right thing. So just take a look for #solutions to find that. But let me introduce you to Amy. I'm so glad you're here, Amy.
Thank you for having me, Jan. I appreciate it.
That's awesome. Well, can you tell our women a little bit about your journey? Tell us a little bit about your diagnosis, and then I'm excited for you to tell the story of how you got your sexual health back.
Okay, thank you. Well, so I was diagnosed with invasive breast cancer, a triple positive, in May of 2019. I had 3 lumpectomies, followed by 6 rounds of chemo, and then a whole year, and radiation, a month of radiation, and also an entire year of what are called
monoclonal antibodies,
yes,
like Herceptin.
yes, thank you.
Right. Yeah.
And so, I just actually finished a little over a year ago. My hair is growing back.
Yay!
Exciting, yeah. And soon after I had finished chemo and I was starting radiation, I was seeing a acupuncturist for my neuropathy problems, and I was kind of complaining a little bit. I said I love my oncologist, but I feel like I felt like Humpty Dumpty, and I was broken, and I needed people to put me back together again. And I just didn't know where to truly start. And my oncologist, who I loved, had said kind of like, basically like, take some calcium, or magnesium or something. It wasn't like I needed like somebody to sit me down with a list and say, this is what you need to do. And that acupuncturist gave me the best advice. She said, doctors all have different toolboxes. She said, they're all wonderful, but they know how to fix what they know how to fix. And your oncologist knows how to stop cancer, which is a miracle, right? But said, you need to go seek out help from different people that are specialists in those areas that you're suffering. And so that kind of put me on a journey to just start asking a lot of questions and researching groups like this, and just trying to find out different tools to help me in my healing process. And so I was lucky enough to find this group, and also to be referred to a women's sexual health gynecologist that specializes in issues like sex after breast cancer.
And she's really an oncology specialist, you mentioned to me.
She is. She does a lot of work with oncologists, and I was very lucky that she also worked for the same company that my oncologist did. Not the same office, but she was able to talk to her and ask questions and make sure the treatment she was giving me was approved from my oncologist. And that was important to me, to make sure that I wasn't doing something that was going to, cause cancer or reoccurrence.
Right. We were talking a little bit prior to pressing record that I know from our experience over the last 10 years that many of you may be in cities where you're not that fortunate to have a big list of doctors that you can see. We really know that. But as Amy is sharing her story, you need to know that there is a new kind of discipline within medicine called integrative medicine, and doctors in different specialties now are becoming integrative specialists. And so the gynecologist, for example, that Amy is talking about here in the Phoenix, Arizona area is someone that would be considered to be an integrative gynecologist with a specialty in oncology. So she really won the lottery with that person, right? But so these are just all words that you might want to jot down as you're trying to find the right doctors for you. But for those of you that may not have, again, a big list to choose from, just understanding the kinds of things that Amy is going to explain will help you go back to your PCP or your gynecologist to discuss some of these potential solutions for you. Okay.
Right.
So thanks for letting me get that in, Amy.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So something that she did, so when I was having treatments and I started having, the vaginal dryness, my oncologist had let me use a product called Replens, which you might have heard of. And that didn't really do a lot for me, but I've heard some people say that it was okay. And so, that was one place to start, but it didn't do a lot for me. So one thing that she did for me, the first thing, she obviously did a vaginal exam, and she explained to me not only that I had some atrophy, right? That was number one problem, atrophy. And she measured, almost like when you're pregnant or you're having a baby and you dilate, she measured the size, or I don't know what the degree, I guess, of my atrophy. Surprisingly, she said I wasn't as bad as some, like it could be worse, which was surprising. So that was one thing, she measured that. And then she also, of course, went inside and took samples basically of my vagina and swabbed it and looked at it under a telescope and also measured my pH balance. That's something that I did not know a lot about and was really important, because she said my pH balance was way off, from chemo.
Interesting. Yeah.
Basically had fried and dried me, right? And I know a lot of women suffer from that. And so I had two major problems going on. And so she was able to, the product that she prescribed for me, and a lot of women have used this before, is this Reverie, which is hyaluronic acid. So that was for the inside of my vagina. But the other thing that she checked my pelvic floor muscles, which is a lot of women need to go to pelvic floor specialists or therapy. I didn't, but that was important. So she checked that. She checked to make sure that nothing else was going on inside of there, and that was important to rule out any other issues, like you mentioned, that there would be other things going on.
Yeah, a lot of women might have endometriosis or fibroids or things like that. So that is, again, on our solutions list, that you want to rule things out so that you're actually treating the situation with the right stuff. So
exactly. Yes. So she did that. She was very thorough. So she addressed like I said, I was doing, what I did was I used this Reverie about 3 times a week. And this was, I didn't have to get a prescription. It's just online. And you can get it reoccurring. And then the other days, what she gave me was these vitamin E, Key E, Carlson suppositories, which are just on Amazon, and they're natural. You could also just use coconut oil, although some people, it doesn't, some people have issues with that. So this is what I did. These two, I rotated them to help with the vaginal dryness, to restore my pH balance.
Right. And also that they're internal moisturizers, right?
Exactly.
And so just FYI, I also have used hyaluronic acid and let me describe mine, which I
Mhm.
got actually prescribed by my gynecologist, and I got them filled at a compound pharmacy.
Yeah,
So,
and compound's great. Yes.
right. And so in essence, they look like a bullet that's made out of wax. And
Yes.
there's an applicator that you put them in, and then you just
Yes.
insert it like a tampon and
Yes.
press the little plunger right before bed, and then that waxy stuff it melts overnight, so it
Yep.
really moisturizes while you're laying down. Is that similar to Reverie then?
That's exactly the same. Yes. Yep.
Very good.
Both of these are suppositories that you just insert vaginally, and that's exactly what they do. They melt,
Perfect.
they keep that. And that hyaluronic acid basically restores that pH balance to your inside of your vagina so that you don't have that dryness anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When you're lacking the estrogen, then that's what happens inside. It's very similar to what happens when women go through menopause. So that was the first thing that we did. The second thing that we did is find a good lubricant. And this Yes OB is what I use. It's plant-based, but it's not for women that if you use condoms, this is not the one you would want to use. But you're on your Facebook group, there's lots of good lubricants out there.
Right.
Another thing I learned is that like the KY jelly that I had been using prior was not going to do it anymore. A good lube is a very important part of it as well.
Right. And can I jump into, you
Yep.
mentioned Replens earlier too.
Yep.
Two of our expert contributors have said don't go near Replens for various
Really?
reasons. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then and we do again based on my hashtag kind of thing, which is how we
Yeah.
find things
Yeah.
in our group. If you do hashtag lube or lubes, you'll find the list that our pelvic floor therapist Kathy Cates has put together. It's got
Mhm.
moisturizers, lubricants, and condoms that are all recommended to her patients.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
there's a really comprehensive list there. Yeah, great.
That's good. No, that's good to know because I never knew there were so many good lubes out there before.
Well, and it's just what you're saying too. Some upset the pH balance. Some are
Yes.
the osmosity is important.
Mm.
The way that lubes interact with a condom is important.
Yep.
Is it water-based or oil-based?
Yep.
I learned more than I really ever wanted to learn.
I know, right? So many things. So the next thing that we tackled along with a good lube is the atrophy, right? So we had the vaginal dryness and we had the atrophy. So the atrophy, the way that I had to combat that is the gynecologist recommended some dilators, some vaginal dilators, and these aren't the kind that like actually vibrate or anything. They look something similar like this, and there are several different types and several different kinds. But I just ordered me a kit, and there's instructions on how to use them. But she actually taught me how to use them. She had me bring them, and kind of talked about how to use them along with my husband, but also how to use them to basically stretch out my vagina again. And honestly, luckily, I didn't need them for very long, but they did what they needed to do.
Awesome.
And then I didn't have that problem anymore. And it went away fairly quickly as long as I actually used them.
We actually sometimes say use it or lose it, but it's really true when it comes to the vagina, right? That it
Yes,
just becomes tighter and tighter the less that you use it. And so the
Yep.
dilators are meant to relax the muscles,
Yes.
stretch the tissue, that kind of thing, right?
It's like a physical therapy almost,
Right.
And that is what the gynecologist said. She said, if you don't use it, you will lose it. It is a muscle, and it, atrophied because I wasn't concerned about that during chemo,
Right.
So that really was a game changer for me. So after I had done all of these things, I had good lube, I had the dilators, no more atrophy, I had no more dryness. That was all good. Even after all of that, I still had this little part at the opening of my vagina that was almost like a paper cut. It was so sensitive, and it would rip, and it was bleed, and it would be just excruciatingly painful, and it would not heal. So finally, the gynecologist recommended, after consulting with my oncologist first, a compound pharmacy mixed a cream with a little bit of DHEA in it, which is a little bit of an estrogen.
Mhm.
However, she talked to me about studies that they had done and shown that it was safe for breast cancer women. Now this it looked a little bit like this, but I wanted to just show you how little it is. It's just this
Oh,
little
wow.
thick. It's just this. Oh, it's not even going to come out right now. I'll get a different one. It's just this little teeny tiny click, and it's like basically a dab will do you, and it only goes on the outside. It's nothing going inside. You're not sticking it inside, and you don't need very much. And I didn't need it very often. But once I put that little bit up there, it healed that area.
Wow.
And I haven't had any problems since.
Wow. That's awesome.
I use
awesome.
it like, I use it now maybe once a month just to keep that area soft.
Mm-hmm.
It was ripping open, and the gynecologist explained to me that little spot, it's like right at the bottom of your vagina opening, it is where all your nerves are. So where you get pleasure, but it's also where you have the pain. And it was hard as a rock, and it was ripping and bleeding. It was so awful. And so there was no way, even though I had taken care of the atrophy and I had taken care of the dryness, I couldn't get that part to heal. And so for me, and maybe all women don't have that problem and won't need it necessarily, but for me, getting that prescription with a approval from my oncologist and also getting it from a compound pharmacy was important. Again, it's not internal, so you're not putting it inside, it's on the outside. And for me, that kind of, I guess, brought to end kind of this journey of getting myself healed. And once I was healed and the pain went away, then I could enjoy that intimacy again, and move on with my life. And it really was life-changing for me.
That's so awesome. Well, your success story was the reason I wanted to just sit down and allow our women to hear your story from you. So the thing we talked about earlier was, ladies, it's horrible that your intimate life has been stolen through the breast cancer experience. It's awful. It's why we have the Sex After Breast Cancer group. But you need to know there are solutions. However, the solutions aren't like, check a box and it's all done, right, Amy?
Right.
It takes some effort to, in essence, diagnose with your doctors what's actually going on, and then coming up with the solutions and allowing your body to heal so that you can reclaim that part of your life. So super important. Well, Amy, is there anything in closing that you want to share?
No, I just wanted to say I appreciate your time and your group and the inspiration. My first day, I remember going into chemo, and everyone's heard this quote, but there was a little sign and it just said, basically one day your journey will help somebody else, and I feel like so many people have helped me along my journey, and I found myself here. I had no idea when I started, breast cancer treatments that this would end up being a problem. Like I didn't make that connection. I don't think a lot of ladies do. You don't understand how severe the treatments can be, and then they leave you like Humpty Dumpty, and you got to kind of put yourself back together again. So I just appreciate everyone's comments and ideas and solutions. And of course, for you for putting together this wonderful group to help people.
It is really a beautiful group, and everybody is so helpful to one another. And you, especially when I approached Amy about the post that she did about her success, I thought, oh, here I am talking to a gal that I don't even know. Hey, do you want to go on a video on the website and talk about what helped your sex life?
Yeah.
So she's very brave and so generous to be able to tell her story to all of us. So I really appreciate it, Amy. Thank you so much for serving
you're very welcome
in this way. It's a huge blessing to be able to, and I think a huge encouragement to everyone to just hear the success that you've had.
Yeah.
Good on you, girl, for
thank you. I just don't want anyone to give up, because I see that all the time. Gave up, and it did take me. It wasn't, it was over a year after my treatments finished that I finally was like, I've got this, but so don't give up.
Okay, so here's a question that just pops into my head. So you had atrophy, which I have also been diagnosed with atrophy. But what about libido? Was your libido all intact after cancer?
No, and I would say that it is still not 100%. However, once I was able to get pain free
Yes.
and have that closeness again without the pain, it helps so much. Now, am I exactly how I was pre? No, and I realize that I'm never going to be, but I also won't take that intimacy for granted anymore, right? Because I lost it and I was able to gain it back. So I don't think my libido is going to be the same, but just the fact that I'm not in pain has increased it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
Like I was almost so
yeah.
PTSD from the pain.
Yes.
I was shying away from it. I didn't want to do it anymore because it hurt so bad for
Right.
3 days. I couldn't stand to, do anything. But now I'm fine. I can, be intimate. I'm fine. I don't have any
Right.
consequences afterwards. So I think it has changed it for me.
Very cool. Absolutely. No, that I'm really glad I asked that, because I think that's more of the battle than we think. That
Yeah.
just being able to have a pain-free experience
Yeah.
allows us to maybe even have a pleasurable experience, both from
Absolutely.
an intimacy standpoint and a physical standpoint. So yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks again for your willingness to be able to
You're
share
very
your
welcome.
story. And so I hope that this is helpful to some of you, and just give old Amy an atta girl when you see her posts in the Sex After Breast Cancer group. And if you're not already in the group, just look for Sex After Breast Cancer on Facebook. It is a private group. You can join it. Anybody that's had breast cancer can join it. And it is private, so that although you may see posts in your feed, nobody else sees anything from our group. So we really have the freedom to talk about everything, and we do. So, so this is Jan James signing off for Hope After Breast Cancer. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Girlfriend, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. I hope you found some nuggets to encourage you and give you hope. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You never want to miss an episode. And we'd love to know how we're doing, so please be sure to leave us a review. Until next time, this is Jan James encouraging you to remember there is hope after breast cancer. See you next time.